Welcome back to the Venture Podcast. Today, James and I had the amazing opportunity to speak with Kate, the co-founder and head of product at Tally Labs, a Web3 media company that is forever changing the landscape of storytelling. Before starting the company, Kate attended the Parsons School of Design, and she was accepted into several well-known fellowships, including Next 36, the New York City Media Lab, and the Kleiner Perkins Fellowship. She also worked as a product manager at Better Mortgage and Peleton.
In this episode, Kate shares how her passion for the arts and design led her to a career in tech. She shares cool stories like her product launch that generated nearly $2 million in revenue within only 6 minutes of its release. And she offers advice like the importance of seeking discomfort early on in your career. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Venture Podcast. I'm so excited to be joined by co-host James and to be joined by Kate. Kate, we met through the Next 36 you were Next Founders, the Next program. I think something that stands out is that in class you always ask really good questions and you never really shy away from things. So that's something that I think we all notice, and we thought you'd be a great person to interview. So we're very excited to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about Tally Labs, and thank you for the kind words. I've really enjoyed being in the classes together.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I'd love to get started. I guess it'd be great to get started earlier on. We want to just hear your whole entrepreneurial journey throughout all these years, and it would be great to start with your childhood. And I think something that's unique about you as an entrepreneur is that you have a more design-focused background. So I'd love to hear about your earliest memories and when you first became interested in design.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was a kid, I was always building things. I really loved making clothes for my dolls, making jewelry, and I was always trying to sell things. My mom has this funny story of me going around the table trying to sell jewelry to my relatives, and she was almost embarrassed by how forceful I was. I don't remember it because I was really young, but I was trying to sell the jewelry so that I could buy an outfit for my aunt's new baby. So at least she was happy that it was for a good cause and I wasn't going to just go buy candy or something. But I don't really know where that comes from. I think I just always really loved building things and was always very entrepreneurial. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I definitely grew up in a household seeing them build businesses, and they definitely brought us along on the journey. My mom had a physiotherapy clinic that she started from scratch when she was 25. And then when she had us, she would just bring us to the clinic. So she would have like baby patient, and just jump in between all of them. So I think I just really grew up in that kind of environment.
That's awesome. Would you say that your parents were your real mentors and your push for entering into entrepreneurship, or were there any other people as well that kind of influenced you, down this path?
Yeah, I think my parents were my main inspiration. They definitely didn't push me to be an entrepreneur. I think that they really just wanted me to choose something that I would be happy doing. But they definitely inspired me to pursue it. I think it was really cool to be able to see them work really hard at something. And we were definitely a part of it. Like my mom later started a business where she was selling a product. And then I was 11 answering the phones and doing customer service for her when she was too busy. And that was a really cool experience. I think it just made me love that rush of building something and getting that instant feedback from customers. And then for other mentors, I think it was Next Canada that really made me commit to the entrepreneurial journey. I think I was always interested in it, but they made me see that, hey, I can do this and I should just take the leap.
And then you went to Savannah College, right, for your undergrad. Once you were at Savannah College, what was that experience kind of like, and how did that set you up for what was next? And did you know what was next? Did you want to pursue maybe something entrepreneurial or more of a corporate career?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'll talk about how I got to Savannah and then where I went after. I graduated from high school early, and at that point was already doing some fashion modeling. So I moved to Singapore where I pursued that. I was only 16 and I still can't believe that my parents let me do that. But then while I was in Singapore, I realized that it really wasn't the career that I wanted to pursue. So then I moved back to Toronto and really wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then I sort of on a whim moved to Montreal, where I ended up working as a barista, which was definitely not the right fit for me. I've never tried so hard at a job and failed so badly. I was just not quick enough at making coffee and had a lot of frustrated customers. So then I left that job and started working at an online magazine as an unpaid intern. That was where I got really interested in app development and realized that I wanted to go back to school for that. And so I applied to Savannah College of Art and Design to do design there and moved to Savannah. But then while I was there, I realized very quickly that it was going to be really hard to get a job from Savannah just because it's such a small city. And being Canadian, I really needed to get a job right out of college so that I could get a visa. So then I was able to transfer to Parsons School of Design, where I was in New York. And then I did school there for a full 4 years.
Super cool. And I guess at Parsons, like obviously your desire to go there was because of fashion design. Did the technology piece also apply there, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so I actually applied there for their design and technology program, which was really focused on app design. And during my program, I focused also partially on video game design, which I think influenced a lot of what we do today at Tally Labs. And then after Parsons, I went to Better Mortgage as my first job out of college.
Awesome. And after Better Mortgage, Kate, or before as well, um, you know, off the camera, we talked a lot about the influence that Next has had on you, particularly with Ajay, who's one of the co-founders of the Next program, a great program for young entrepreneurs in Toronto. And I guess I'd love to hear about the influence that Ajay had on you and the Next program as a whole, and how that really shaped you into the path that you've decided to take today.
Yeah, for sure. So I did the Next Canada program as a part of Next 36 in 2016. So that was after my third year of school. I worked with a few other people in the Next Canada program on a venture. We met during the program, started it during the program, and then also shut it down during the program. It was a very quick step into my first company, but I learned a lot from the experience. And I remember at the end of the program talking to Ajay about what I should do next, wondering, should I follow this path of dropping out of college and trying to pursue a startup, or should I try to build a startup after? And Ajay just said, look, you should go get a job at a company that has this criteria. He wrote down 7 criteria. Can't remember all 7 now, but it was find a company that's raised a Series B from reputable investors in a growing industry with a CEO that's done it before, and a few other things. But he said that would be the best way for me to grow in my career, to really learn what it looks like to scale a startup and learn from people who have done it before. I think it was just the best piece of advice, because if I look back to where I was back then, there was no way I could have built a successful business. I just didn't know enough. But after going to Better and then to Peleton, which both fit Ajay's criteria, I learned so much there that I could then apply later to building a business. And then I think the other thing I would say about Next Canada is that Reza and Ajay really inspired me to achieve to do more. I think that their mission of getting Canadians to be more aggressive and set higher goals really resonated with me. And I think it really did change the trajectory of my career.
That's amazing. And I guess after Next, could you walk us through what was next after that? You said, you had these criteria, you're looking for a job. Is that directly what landed you at Peloton? Was there an intermediary step between there?
Yeah, so I was really worried about getting a visa. That was my top priority in my 4th year of school, was figuring out how can I get a job somewhere that fit Ajay's criteria, then would also be willing to sponsor me. So I was on Angel List looking for a company that fit Ajay's criteria, and I came across Better Mortgage, and I saw that they were hiring a designer. And I actually applied there pretending that I had already graduated so that I could get in and get an interview. And then I showed up and did the interview, and they were interested in me. And then I said, by the way, I'm actually still in college, but would you hire me as an intern? And then I'll be ready to start full time in 6 months. And I don't know if you know anything about Better Mortgage, but if you Google it, you'll see it's a pretty volatile company. They're sort of famous for the CEO firing 1,000 people on Zoom or calling employees dumb dolphins. I was one of the dumb dolphins. Yeah. In my interview, he walked in and he started yelling at me, going, "Why would I hire a student? You're not committed to what we're doing. You're still in school." And I just kept talking to him and was like, "Please hire me. I really want to work here for these 7 reasons that a J gave me." I convinced him and he hired me as an intern. And then I started full time right after school.
Wow. And that experience, what was that experience like with a CEO like that? I know something that, some of my mentors have told me is take the good and leave the bad for people. But I guess, could you walk us through maybe some of the things you learned at Better Mortgage and how you transition that to the next part of your career for the better or for the worse?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that was funny about that was it reminded me a little bit of Next Canada, just being in this really intense environment where people are quick to tell you what you're doing wrong or what you could improve on. And I actually think it was one of the things that drew me to Better, even though it was a really crazy place to work. It was also one of my best work experiences ever, and I learned so much there. I think it was really great to be surrounded by super smart people. I think it was one of the smartest groups of people I've ever met. Everybody worked really hard and was very data driven and analytical and just wanted to push this business forward. And I think being in that sort of environment helped me learn so much faster, even though it was really painful at times. It was the most stressed I've been in my life and like one of the most fun times of my life.
I'm sure that experience also shapes how you lead a company now at Tally Labs. What specifically did you kind of see there that you're able to take and then apply to your position kind of currently? I don't mean to jump too far ahead, but what was like the biggest takeaway from that experience and how you've applied it kind of today?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think the thing that I learned at Better was how to just get in there and solve problems, even if I didn't have the answer. They really encouraged you to just see a problem, get in there and fix it. And I think that that's a lot of what you have to do as an entrepreneur is just something comes up, you have no idea what's going on, and then you just have to put one step in front of the other and get through to a solution. And I think that that's one of the things that I really learned there. The other thing that I learned at Better was how to listen to users. Uh, so I started there as a designer, and I was working on internal tools for our underwriters. It was a mortgage company, so underwriting was really important. And it was a really great opportunity because my users were just on the floor above me. So I could go upstairs and talk to them, and I would actually like sit behind them while I was designing things and they were working and just like seeing what their problems were and trying to fix them. And I think having that user-centered approach really carries through today to Tally, where we listen really closely to what our users do.
Awesome. Um, and it's one of like the most fundamental pieces of like startup advice that, we always hear, like whether you're reading, the YC articles online or anything really, everyone says to do it, but in practice it is quite hard. So it's good that you, in a way, like that was like your first experience with it in an environment where your users were, I guess, relatively accessible, and that probably translated a lot down the line. I'm now hoping to shift a bit to Peloton. How did you then move from design into product management?
Yeah, so this is a really funny story. I started at, oh, sorry, the dog, 1 second.
Can I pet that dog?
Okay, hopefully he relaxes. Yeah, so this is a really funny story. I started at Better as a designer, working on the internal tools for underwriters, and then they paired me with a product manager. And he often tells the story about how one of our first meetings, I took him into a room and I'd already written 10 things on a whiteboard that I thought he could be doing better. Which was mostly about how we needed to be listening more to users. So our relationship got off to a really sort of rocky start. But then as we started working together, it became super close. And then he taught me a lot about product management. And then when he left Better, he said that I should take over his job. And then that let me take my first step into product management. And then flash forward 5 years, we actually went to Peloton together. We started Tally Labs together. And then 4 years ago, we got married. So we've had
Wow.
a whole
Whoa.
career together. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. James, I'm gonna let you ask the next question. But
It's one of our coolest
yeah,
parts about our career, I think, is that
yeah.
we really grew up together.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, this is why we do the podcast, because this is the stuff that they don't write in the medium article. This is what we aim to deliver. So James, please probe further on this. As this is,
Yeah, that's so cool that you're able to meet your husband eventually at this place, and then you know launched your career into a really cool place. So why don't you just tell me a little bit about what your jump to Peloton was like, and how, like, what kind of influence meeting your husband there was like, and what that kind of start position was like.
Yeah, so his name is Blake. So when Blake left Better, he applied to Peloton and was actually offered a role there on the product team. But when he applied, the product managers all did UX design as well as product management, and he really doesn't like UX design. So he turned it down because it wasn't the right fit for him. But then he referred me because I had this background in design and he thought it could be a good role for me. So then I accepted the position. And then a few months later, a new role opened up that was more analytical, which is more sort of in his wheelhouse. And I remember my manager being like, "Hey, are you still in touch with Blake?" And I was like, "Yes, we're still in touch." So then he interviewed for the role and got it. And then we had to be like, "We're dating." And our manager said that he didn't care at all and just ended up managing the two of us. So within a few months, we were both working at Peloton. But yeah, that's how we moved from Better to Peloton.
Hmm. That's so cool. And I'm curious, like, what is it like to work with somebody you're in a relationship? If you're okay with answering that, I don't want to push too
No,
far,
no,
but
not at all. Yeah, definitely. I think because we've worked together for our whole careers, it makes a lot of sense. I think we have developed a really great relationship around working together, and I think it also just makes it more fun because we love our work. So it makes it easy to. It's what we want to talk about, and it's nice when the other person understands what's going on and can really dive into it with you.
yeah, that's amazing. That is so cool. Um, so at Better Mortgage, you mentioned when you first got there, there's, this, I think you said 10 things that you wrote down on that whiteboard and said, I think we could do this, X, Y, and Z better. When you got to Peloton, what were those things that you wrote down that you said, hey, I think we could do a better job? Whether you actually wrote them down or whether it was until.
Yeah, yeah. So I think at Better, I really learned how to listen to users and understand their pain points. And then at Peloton, I really learned how to use data to influence what we were building. Peloton did a really great job of being data driven. So being able to look at, okay, what does our whole funnel look like? Where is their drop off? What should we focus on? And then from there, doing interviews with users and understanding what their pain points are and why they're dropping off. But I think before Peloton, I didn't really understand how to use data and analytics, and that was really the skill that I picked up there.
Kate, I kind of want to give our audience just a better understanding of what, like, a product manager does. Like, for anyone who doesn't know what product management is, like, what does that actually look like day to day, and especially at like Peloton?
Yeah, I think the most important part of the role is identifying opportunities and understanding what to work on. There's always 105 things that you could be doing. So saying, okay, what is the most important thing that we could focus the team on right now that will push the right metrics forward? And I think that is a combination of talking to users, looking at the market, looking at the business goals, and looking at the data, and then taking all of that and working with design and engineering to prioritize it and push it forward. And then a lot of the day to day is working with engineering and design. So looking at the Figmas and giving design feedback and making sure that we're really addressing the right problem, and then working with engineering on timelines and scoping and making sure that we're building the right thing on the right timeline.
Would you say most of your, like, technical skills came from what you learned in college or from Parsons, or did that come from just like onboarding to the job and just kind of learning the role itself?
I think most of it came from on the job learning on the fly. I think that is also a really unique thing about product management is that it's varies so much company to company, and then it's just a really hard thing to teach. I think you just learn it by doing it. So I think just jumping in and making sure that you're talking to people who know more than you do to get their feedback so that you can make the right decisions, and then honing your own skills and making sure that you're exercising good judgment is the way to learn how to do it, for sure.
Awesome. I want to go really deep into your point on being data driven in product management. And I know Peloton, when you got there, it was a great company, but the uptick that it had, especially as you went into COVID, you had a surge in users, really exponential. For anyone who didn't know, like it was incredible. I remember seeing this on the news like many days, and then it was very high for a good period of time, and then it eventually dropped off. So I guess the ebb and flow of the users and the surge and then the eventual pullback. What about that data changed or what about that trend maybe affected your approach to product management over time? Did you have to think about things differently, when you had that surge versus when there was a drop off, or did you not really change the strategy with how you approached it?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. So the biggest thing that changed during the surge was adapting to a changing user base. So at first, Peloton had this group of really avid fans who were always giving us feedback and were, riding the bike like many times per week consistently. And we had a Facebook group. I think it was the most active group on all of Facebook, where people were posting things about Peloton, giving feedback, asking for features. So much of our job was looking at what these super users were doing and building for them. And then during the COVID surge, we saw all these other types of users come on who are maybe more casual users and actually at a higher risk of churning. So what we had to do is say, okay, we've got these super users and we want to keep them engaged. But what we actually have to do is think about the users who are quieter and less vocal, and focus on what we can deliver to them that will keep them riding the bike. So I think it just really changed our approach to product management, and that's something that I see today too, is balancing the super users versus widening the funnel and appealing to a wider group of people.
And the users that were quieter, could you go more into depth in terms of like, are there any frameworks or is there anything in particular? Could you go just deeper into how you were able to manage those quiet users and still offer enough value to them so that they you retained them as customers for Peloton?
Yeah, I think one really important lesson is figuring out what the ideal usage patterns are for your product. So with the really avid users, say they were riding the bike 4 times per week, that is a really particular type of user. They're using your social features, they're participating in programs, they're showing up consistently 4 times week over week. Then you've got the more casual users who are less engaged in the features, and for them, working out on the bike 1 time per week. At first, everybody was really focused on, we need to get these users to move from 1 time per week to 4 times per week and get them to use all of our features. But then when you do calls with them, they're like, hey, I just had a new kid, and for me, 30 minutes a week is all I can do. Or, hey, I'm really not that interested in the social features and being a part of the Peloton community. For me, this is just a workout. So really understanding, okay, if this person only wants to work out 1 time per week, what can we do to keep them consistent on 1 time per week, and what are they really looking for? So it's really just understanding different cohorts and what their needs are and being able to build around them instead of trying to make everybody fit this mold of what a super user looks like.
Very interesting.
Cool. And you were at Peloton for 4 years, right, Kate?
Yeah, I was.
So I guess that was your longest stint you'd ever had done at a company at that point. What made you think about your next chapter? Like, what eventually led you to think, okay, yeah, I've had my time here. It's time to maybe try something new. Like, how did you get to that point?
Yeah, so sort of by accident. So Blake and I had tried to start many different businesses together over the course of our careers. And then we found a third co-founder, Ethan, at Peloton. So it was just the three of us trying a bunch of different things. And at some point we were sort of sick of trying different businesses. We felt like it was never going to work, and we're feeling like we wanted to give up, which was a really sort of down period, I would say. But then Blake had some friends who were interested in NFTs, and he ended up buying a Bored Ape. I think it was like $200 at the time, so it was before Bored Apes really took off. It was funny because he said, "Oh, I want to spend $200 on this JPEG of a monkey," and I was like, "Okay, but I'm going to spend $200 at Aloe Yoga." And to this day, I look at those Aloe pants and I'm just like, "Damn, those could have been worth like $1 million had I just bought a Bored Ape instead of the yoga pants." But yeah, so he bought this Bored Ape and just for fun started writing as if he was the Bored Ape on Twitter. He's really creative and like sort of weird projects like that. And then the Twitter account started taking off as the Jenkins the Ballet Twitter account. And then it quickly grew, and we realized, hey, a lot of people are interested in this, and there's probably a business here. So then we started working on building a software product around it, and then that led us to Tally Labs, which made it very easy to leave Peloton because we had a clear jumping point.
Mm-hmm. And that's like NFTs are something that it's always been something that's really interesting to me. Full disclosure, I don't fully understand the industry that well, and I did a lot of prep for this interview as well, just to fully understand, the NFT and just the ecosystem as a whole. And I think a lot of people are probably in a similar position where they hear about it. We've all heard of the Bored Ape. It's really cool. Jenkins the Valet. But I guess I think it'd be really good for our users or our viewers, to just hear a bit about the NFT market, and if you could provide an overview and why you thought it was a high point of conviction, maybe other than the paying users, to say, hey, let's build a business around this.
Yeah, I think what we saw in NFTs reminded us of early Peloton, which was just mania around a product or around a space, and that's what really drew us to it. I mean, in the early days of Peloton, people were so excited to get a T-shirt that said, "Hey, I had done 100 rides," and it was similar to how the Bored Ape T-shirts were selling out in seconds. And I think anytime you see mania, just get in it because something good will happen. And then Blake, by starting this Twitter account, it really drew us to the space because we saw, hey, people are really excited about this, and anytime people are excited about something, there's an opportunity to build something in it.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the NFT market, I guess could you talk a little more about the broader ecosystem of the NFT, what it represents for people, and other than I guess the mania, like what particular about the NFT market makes it so special for people?
Yeah, I think, okay, so if you bring yourself all the way back to 2021, COVID is still happening. People are at home, they're on their laptops. Uh, the thing that I think NFTs did was it created this sense of community that anybody could join. So if you bought a Bored Ape, you all of a sudden were a part of this Bored Ape community, and people were following each other. They were meeting up. They were Discords. They were what do you call it on Twitter when you do like live streams. So I think people really wanted to be a part of these communities. And I think this idea of digital ownership is also really important. I think it was really exciting to people to be able to own an NFT and know that they had real ownership over it, which is I also think what spurred the industry. But I don't think, I mean, I'm sure people have written papers and done a lot of research on this. This is just one opinion, but I don't think it would have taken off the same way if it hadn't been COVID. I think it was the fact that people were at home looking for community and looking for something that caused it to take off the way that it really did.
Yeah, I have a couple friends who got into that space as well, and it seemed pretty cool at the time. And it was almost like there was a fear of missing out. Like you just didn't want to miss out on the big next NFT drop or whatever it would be. So how did you kind of get your community to really believe in the stuff that you were building? I guess you had that Twitter account, but what was kind of the strategy there?
Yeah, so So Blake created the character Jenkins the valet and started writing stories as if he was Jenkins the valet, about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I think it helped people imagine this whole world and understand sort of like what the Bored Ape Yacht Club was. And then what really helped it take off was when he started taking submissions from people to write about their NFTs. So people would say, okay, I have a Bored Ape and he's the chef at the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And then Blake would write this whole story about the chef at the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And then people would share those stories. So this really interesting flywheel thing started happening because we would write about people's characters and then people would be excited about that. And then they would share them and the more people would see them and submit. And that sort of started building this initial community. And I think what we learned from that, which was completely non-tech, it was just Blake writing and me making Figma designs and then us posting them to this Twitter account. But what we learned was that people really love stories about themselves and just really love storytelling and being a part of that process. And then that's what led us to our initial software product called the Writer's Room.
Yeah, Kate, can you tell us a little more about the Writer's Room?
Yeah, so in May of 2021, Blake bought Jenkins and started writing these stories. Very quickly, we realized there's an opportunity to build a product around it, and we wanted to do our own NFT drop because, at the time, that was the way to get started in this business. So we came up with this idea where people could buy NFTs that they could use as a pass to participate in the creation of a major story. So originally it was people submitting their characters and we were just writing scenes and posting them on Twitter. We said, hey, what if we took this and built a whole book? So we did our NFT drop in August of 2021. It was a wild evening. I remember Blake was in the hotel room with, the drop happening any second now. I was texting, being like, I'll be over there in a minute. I was super worried. I thought there was no way we were going to sell any of these. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to console them and tell them it's going to be okay, and we'll just keep going. So I'm walking over, and Blake is texting me, being like, okay, it's starting. Oh my God, the website's not working. Oh my God, the website crashed. This isn't going to work. And then all of a sudden it was like, people are minting from the contract. They just figured it out. And then 2 minutes later, it was, we're sold out. And we made $2 million in 6 minutes. Whoa. Like I couldn't even get to the hotel room in time. And it was this incredible moment of, wow, we did it. And then it was like we had this dinner where none of us spoke because we all just realized now we had $2 million and 10,000 people that were just expecting us to write a book about the Bored Ape Yacht Club and to create a whole business around it. It was very surreal. But I think, we just kept putting one step in front of the other and built software that let people license their characters. That actually also broke and was really not well built because at the time we were all fully employed at Peloton. We were outsourcing some of the development to a guy who only went by Puppy, which is like so funny. Don't hire Puppy. And we the initial licensing platform broke. I remember Ethan was on his honeymoon at the time when that launched and was just on the beach trying to fix the platform so that people could license because everybody was complaining that it wasn't working. But then we were able to license, I don't know the exact number. I mean, I guess it was almost 10,000 characters. And then from there, we went to write the actual book about the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So that was a whole challenge in itself because now we had the money, we had the characters, and we needed to find a writer. So I guess it would have been the fall of 2021, we signed Jenkins the Valet to CAA, the talent agency, which was really interesting, right? They just signed an NFT character, and it's one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. And I think they helped us network into Neil Strauss, who's a 10 times New York Times bestselling author. So he agreed to write the book. And then we built the Writer's Room, which was the software where people could take their NFTs and use them as a pass to vote on what happened in the book. So Neil would prompt the community saying, what did Jenkins do in this scenario? What did they do in what happened I don't know, here or there, and then people would vote on what they wanted the direction of the story to be. And then Neil could also refer to all of the characters that we had licensed to the book and started to pull from their stories to build this book, which you can imagine was a very complicated process. Like Neil had 10,000 characters and 10,000 people voting on the direction of a book and then had to turn it into a novel. So while it was a really great experience, I think we realized like, hey, nobody's going to write a great book this way, and we needed to do something different. And this sort of coincided with the NFT market slowing down. So I think we saw how much people love to build stories together and really saw the opportunity, but realized that our implementation was wrong. So it made it very easy for us to take a different direction in our product.
I wanna jump back for a second because that was a crazy thing you said about all of a sudden one night 2 million in literally like 6 minutes. That must have obviously felt great because people were using and buying the product that you built. But was there also a sense of like holy shit, we just sold all this. Now we got to figure out how to continue to satisfy the user, and make this worthwhile. And was that scary, or how did you feel just based off that?
Yeah, it was definitely scary. I think we didn't realize that it was going to sell out that quickly or that it was going to sell out at all. And I think we had put so much work into the NFT drop that we hadn't really planned for what would come after. And all of a sudden, it was just all happened at once where it was after. Like we had the users, we had the money, and then we just needed a plan. But I do think that that's where our backgrounds in tech were helpful. It's sort of like you were put on a new project. Like, hey, here's your budget, here's your engineers, this is your strategy. Like, go forward and make it happen. And I think we were able to go forward and make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear more about you mentioned in your previous point, when the slow started to happen, you said, okay, we need to make some product decisions. What product decisions did you make? What data did you use? Going back to Peloton, what sort of data did you use to inform those decisions, and how are they paying off right now?
Yeah, definitely. So there's about a year where we're still building in the NFT space. We had dropped a couple other NFTs, all to do with storytelling, and had to do with the writers' room software. And we're just seeing things slow down, and it was in line with the market. Like our NFTs weren't trading at the same way that they were before. Our user growth was slowing down. And I think we're, like everybody else, just hoping that the NFT market picked back up. And then when it felt like what we were doing wasn't going to make sense anymore, at first it was a really dark period. Like the whole team was just watching the metrics go down and thinking, how do we revive this? And we kept looking at what was going wrong in the metrics. And then I listened to this podcast. It was a Y Combinator podcast, I think, with Justin Kahn, where he was talking about Justin TV. Might have been Michael Seibel talking about Justin TV. Anyways, something with Justin TV. And they were talking about how they saw that 20% of their users were using it for video games. And then that's what led them to focus on video games and build Twitch. And then it was just this light bulb moment where it was like, oh, we shouldn't be looking at what everybody doesn't like. We need to look at the people who do like it and focus on that. And we had this small group of people who were really active, who were still, who were creating their own stories. And we said, oh, like the people who really like our product are the people who are just there to be creative. They actually don't care that much about NFTs going up or down. So then that led us to scrap what we had and just really focus in on letting people build their own stories, which is what we do today.
Okay, so obviously Tile Labs is changing how people storytell online. Like, what do you see for the future of this space, and how do you see storytell changing as technology advances and as this space grows bigger?
Yeah, I think one thing that's cool is our mission hasn't changed at all. We still believe that the next generation of IP can be born on our platform. And the reason for that is the younger younger generations really love content that is produced by people, not by companies. I think we see this a lot in kids where they're not watching Netflix, they're watching YouTube. Like Miss Rachel, Bluey, all of these amazing kids franchises are born on YouTube. And I think we want to be a part of that movement where great pieces of IP are built by people like you and me and are supported by the consumer. So our vision is to have a platform where it's really easy for anybody to create stories and publish them and get them out to the world, and that the best stories will grow these followings and be able to become a full franchise. And I think we, like, when I think about where Tally Labs is in 10 years, we're doing like conferences where you can come and you can see your favorite characters dressed in costume, and you can buy t-shirts from your favorite characters. And people, like, we've succeeded when you can go to a Halloween store and see IP that was created on our platform as Halloween costumes, and kids are wearing it trick-or-treating. So I think the long-term vision is how do you bring these characters to life that other people have made, and help them grow followings around them. Similar to Jenkins the Ballet, like, we just built a character that people love. Like, how do you scale that experience?
And what's the secret to like gaining hype to some of these characters? Like, does that come from just flat out a really, really great story, or is there another aspect to it? Like, obviously being in the right place with where you're publishing information about the characters, but what is the secret recipe to that?
Yeah, I think the secret that we stumbled upon is that people want to insert themselves into the creative. So if you think back to Jenkins took off because it was Jenkins telling stories about him meeting other characters that represented our customers. And on our platform today, on our storytelling app, Avenue, kids can read stories and put themselves in the story. So it'll be saying, hey, you're going on an adventure to space, meet your robot friend, Roby. What's your name? And it'll be Kate and Roby going to space. And that, I think, is what people really love, when they become a part of the creative and the story. And then all of a sudden they feel like they have this personal connection to Roby.
I want to go back to the hard times in the company, the hard times in Tally Labs. When the data dropped off and the users were dropping off, a lot of entrepreneurs would quit. They would say, okay, clearly the industry is doing this. It's not just our company, it's the whole industry. Maybe we need a blank slate. Let's go try something different, completely new. How did your relationship with Blake as a co-founder, but also husband, relationship with Ethan, what effect did those relationships have on your ability to stay in the game and persevere?
Yeah, I think the team is the thing that keeps all of us showing up again day after day. And I think it's me and Blake and Ethan, and then also the wider team. We've built this really special bond where everybody wants to ride this through. I mean, there were some really honest conversations back then about if people wanted to stay at the company and how they were feeling. And one thing people kept saying was, I want to work at Tally Labs forever. Let's just find a way to keep this in business. Which kept us going as well, I think, as leaders. And I also think having been at Peloton and at Better, which both had crazy ups and downs, made us a little bit more used to the volatility that companies can experience, and understanding hey, you just have to stay in the saddle. But we always talk about this trip to Montreal. So we're a completely remote team, and we do offsites once a quarter. And this offsite was coming up. It was Montreal in October, and our metrics at this point, it was October of 2023. So our metrics were so low, it was bottom of the NFT market. And we knew we had to do something different, but we didn't know how to tell the team, hey, this thing you've been working on for the last 2 years isn't working. And then we got to the offsite and we all sat down, and the team was like, hey, this isn't working, we need to pivot. And it was such a good lesson as in leadership, I think, because we had always practiced transparency with the whole team. Everybody has access to the data. Everybody knows how our investor updates are going. Everybody is seeing the customer feedback. So when we needed to pivot, to a different software product, I think everybody understood and was aligned that that was the right thing to do. And then instead of myself, Blake, and Ethan coming back and saying, this is what we're doing, we said to the team, what do you guys think we should do? And we spent 3 weeks just talking about what we wanted to build. And we came up with the idea together. And I think that that really helped get buy-in from the team about the direction we were going in, and also made for a better product because it was their ideas and their deep expertise in the space as well that helped us decide what this new product should look like, while also still always staying really true to our vision, which is to create a platform that IP can grow on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Kate, I'd love to hear more about what your product looks like today. Tally Labs, July 2024, the ebbs and flows. Now you guys are, you're building and you have your new product. What is it, and why do you have strong conviction that, this will take you, into the foreseeable future?
Yeah, for sure. So what we learned from our initial product is that people really love interactive stories, and they love to be able to tell stories that are about themselves. So what we did was we built a platform which has two sides of it. The first side is a creator studio where anybody can come on and create these interactive stories. And then they can publish them to a mobile app. And on the mobile app, it's sort of, you can navigate through all the different series. Each series has many episodes. And then when you click into an episode, it's sort of like a choose your own adventure story where you can click through the story and make different decisions that impact the outcome of the story. And then it has this gamified element where you can do level ups, you can collect items, you can roll a dice to see if you can go down a particular path. And what we found is that we really have product market fit with parents and kids. Kids really love these interactive stories because they love to be able to make decisions. And they also really love to be able to name the characters. So they get really excited when it's them swimming alongside the mermaid, and then they get to name the fish. So right now, what we're really excited about is building more IP that kids really love. And then what we see in the future happening is that as these kids grow up, that they'll start to become the creators and create their own stories. So we'll start to have this cycle of the readers becoming the writers.
That's incredible. And when you make these product decisions, are you making it with the current technology trends in mind? I know a big thing, obviously with AI is like that I think of when I hear of this product is like maybe text to video generation, stuff like that. How are you thinking of the current technology trends, and how are you positioning your product so that you can take advantage of the broader trends in the industry, and you don't maybe have to develop all these things in house, but you can leverage it as a great product at the application layer?
Yeah, for sure. It's a really great question. So today we're mostly focused on writing and imagery, but you can use ChatGPT to help you write your story. And then we are using AI images as well. So I think already the product wouldn't be possible without AI. And then it's completely optional. Some creators do their own art and they write it from scratch as well. So it just depends on what the creator prefers. And then in the future, I think we're really excited to move towards other types of content like video content, which I think developments in AI will enable.
I want to now ask you a bit about your investor journey here, Kate. How you obviously raised quite a bit of money for Tally Labs, which it's very hard to do in the startup world. So I'm curious, like, what was that process like, and how did you convince a VC to, take a stake in your company? And how did you find the right VC? Because sometimes, you don't want to jump the gun and take money from somebody who's not going to be the best for your company. So how did you make sure it was the right fit?
Yeah, so this is also an interesting story. So again, going back to 2021 when the NFT market was booming, we had that initial $2 million from the initial NFT drop, and then we were still making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just on secondary sales. So we really weren't looking to raise. We had quite a few investors reaching out after the initial drop, and then also because they would see us be active on Twitter or see different press about Tally Labs. Like when Jenkins signed CAA or when we signed Neil Strauss, there's a lot of press that always led to inbounds. But at the time, we just weren't raising, and because we didn't really need the money. But then when A16Z reached out in January, we took the initial call. we were not racing to the point where we showed up to the call without a deck. And the call was scheduled for 30 minutes and went for 45 minutes. They ran out of time and then said, hey, we need more time with you. And by the way, can you bring a deck so that we can see more about what you guys are doing? Which was just really funny in retrospect. Always have a deck. Any call you're doing, show up with a deck. So then we did a follow-up call with them just to tell them a little bit more about the product. And it also ran late. And then they said, hey, can you talk to Chris Dixon tomorrow? At this point, we said, okay, like we know that they are selling us now and want to invest. Like we could see that coming and weren't really sure if it was the direction that we wanted to go in, but we were really excited to talk to Chris Dixon. I mean, he is one of the biggest leaders in crypto and it seemed like such an amazing opportunity. So we talked to him. He was really excited about the product. And I think it was, later that night or a few days later that they sent us a term sheet. And we just said, thank you very much. We'll get back to you. And I think it was a Friday night. And Blake and I were actually on vacation with my parents. And I try to have very firm boundaries about work and family because otherwise it all just can bleed together. So I thought, okay, we'll get back to them next week when we're back from our trip. And then it was Saturday. We were on a hike with my parents and they just kept calling and calling. And I remember Blake being so flustered because, he's with his in-laws and also really needed to take that call. And so when we got back to the hotel, we talked to them and discussed the terms. And I think the thing that really made us excited about them, well, I guess there's three things. One was they were really aligned with the vision. Like what we were building aligned very closely with their investment thesis. So we knew that they were a good fit from that point of view. Two is because, they're very experienced VCs. We knew that they would trust us to go out and build our product. I think one of the things that we had heard from other entrepreneurs about raising was sometimes if you work with a less experienced VC, they want to be very involved in running your business, which can turn into a difficult situation because only you have all the information about the business and can make the right decisions. So we knew that they would sort of step back and let us build. And then the third thing is that they have a really strong operating team, and we saw their resources as being very helpful to us as a really small startup. So sort of considering those things and talking through the terms with them, we realized that it was a good fit to have them on board as partners, even if it wasn't as much about the money that we needed at the time. We didn't need the money. So even though we didn't need the money, we saw them as being the right partners for us. And then from the point of getting the term sheet to closing, it took about 3 months. And then the NFT market slowed down right after that. So it ended up being very good timing for us.
Very cool. Could you talk to us a little bit more about Chris Dixon and his investment thesis and, maybe things that surprised you in a good way, things that, you didn't really know going into your partnership with A16Z? That's the first question. And the second question is, have you ever met Ben and Mark? I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Chris has got a lot of writing about and blog posts about the future of decentralized content. I think he's really seen this opportunity where the future of content is sort of like Wikipedia, where it's a lot of people participating in the creation of content instead of just a closed room of writers deciding what everybody else will consume. And I think that was really exciting to us because that's exactly what we're doing. Instead of having all of the power consolidated in Hollywood, seeing this opportunity to spread it between all of the people in the world who have great ideas and giving them a way to bring those ideas to life. So we knew from the beginning that what we were doing was just really in line with how they were thinking about it. And then for Ben and Mark, there's an event every year where they bring all the founders together and they're at those events, which is really cool. I think that it's just, it's really an honor to be able to be a part of that space and see all of the other entrepreneurs who have gone on to build like many multi-billion-dollar businesses or Mark and Ben who are themselves great entrepreneurs and great investors.
Cool. Kate, I think we're going to shift into maybe some advice you can offer to, students and some of our listeners based on your experience. So why don't we start with what kind of advice would you give to, there's people at our university, or I mean, Bryce just graduated, but there's people who want to start businesses, especially young women who are very interested in starting their own business. What advice would you give to students who want to do something like this, but they're not really sure where to start? And what advice can you give to women who want to start their own business and the kind of hurdles you saw of doing it yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I'll take a page out of Next Canada's book here, where I think the most important thing you can do as a young person is find opportunities where you can exercise judgment and make consequential decisions. I think Reza Sachu from Next Canada always said, you learn the most when you're uncomfortable. And that has been my motto for the last 8 years since I did the program, which is just how do I pursue opportunities where I'm not comfortable, but I'm going to learn a lot. And then I think that you grow so much faster that way. And it's also more rewarding. Like, I think it, even though it's uncomfortable, it also makes you happy when you feel like you're striving to reach your full potential. And then for women, I mean, I would say everybody is going to have reasons that other people will underestimate you. I mean, that's just going to be a part of life. And instead of focusing on why people are underestimating you and changing that, I think just being true to yourself and focusing on the work is the most important thing you can do, because it's the only thing that you can control. So I think in moments of stress, or when things aren't going well, or somebody's underestimating you, just focusing on, okay, what is the work that I can do today to take the next step forward to make this more successful? And at the end of the day, the success is going to speak for itself. And sometimes you just need to push forward, make your thing better, and then people are going to see that you're doing that, and the rest is going to fall into place.
It's a great answer.
I guess this is a question we kind of ask all of our guests, but what has been kind of your biggest takeaway from your professional journey? And just obviously you've worked for several companies, now you've started your own company and you're growing that. What has been maybe one significant learning that you can share from that?
Yeah, I think my biggest learning from Better, Peloton, and now Tally Labs is just that there's always going to be ups and downs, and you have to stay balanced through all of it. People talk a lot about how you get through the bad times, but it's also about how you get through the good times. If you have too much money or too many users, or, that's when you can also start making mistakes. And then when things are bad, making sure that you're not panicking and you're staying very level-headed and making the right decisions, because everything will always go up and down. So staying balanced through all of it will help you weather the storms and get to the next stage.
Yeah, and I think like self-doubt as an entrepreneur it's inevitable that it creeps in. So it's pretty amazing to see how you've dealt with it. And what do you tell yourself when things are looking like when your company looks like it's going to fail? Like how do you deal with that? Because it's going to happen. You're going to tell yourself as an entrepreneur. That's no surprise. But how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that works is just focusing on the work. Like, okay, what do I need to do today? What's the next step we can take? How do we solve this problem? And I think if we just keep focusing on the work and doing better and building and growing, then at the end of the day, it'll be okay. If we try to look out a couple of years and plan too far ahead, or worry about what's going to happen in the future, there's so many things that are out of our control. But like the only thing that you can control is what do I do today? And I think when you do that, you'll end up stacking enough wins that will lead you to your next step, and then you can just keep going.
Awesome. I remember the question I was going to ask now. So I was wondering, what unique perspectives do you have as a designer, and as a woman that you believe allow you to see things that most startup founders would not see and just miss altogether?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from being a designer is the importance of listening to users. I think I was able to really hone the skill of listening to what people need and understanding what their pain points are, and that can build a better product. And making sure that you don't fall into the pitfall of I think it was the Steve Jobs quote, but if you ask people what they want, they would have told you faster horses. And you would never build a car. And I think I've understood how to keep asking questions to get down to their why and what their real problem is, and then it helps you figure out the best possible solution. And then I think from a unique insight as being a woman, I mean, I guess the maybe the subtext of that do people underestimate women in Silicon Valley? Like, I think we've all seen the data on how investors are less likely to invest in women directly or even teams with women. But again, I think the point there is just focusing on the work and letting the success speak for itself. I think at the time when we were able to raise the money from A16Z, the success of the product and the money that we had already made spoke for itself. And if you just keep doing that, then you'll be able to get past any doubts from people.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, Kate, I know we're pretty much at time here. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I'll ask Bryce if he wants to ask any last questions, or if you want to share any last couple of things. But I think the last question we both want to ask you is kind of, what do you see for the rest of your career in like near-term future? Like, obviously you're going to keep growing Tally Labs, but what other goals do you have in life? Like, you're now married, you're working with your husband, which is so cool. What do you see happening in the foreseeable future? Do you see yourself moving somewhere? Do you want to start something else eventually down the line? What's your mindset around that?
Yeah, we will definitely always keep building businesses together. It's what we love doing. Blake and I always say that we want to achieve permanent vacation, where every day just feels like vacation. But the funny thing is that when we go on vacation, we just end up starting a project and working the whole time. So I think just being able to work on startups together is what will make us happy. And with Ethan as well, I think the three of us will always work together. So definitely going to stay put in Toronto and build our life here, and then continue to build Tally Labs and build whatever comes next.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kate, thank you so much for joining us on the pod today. This was a great interview, and I think we're able to get into, I think we're able to cover a lot, like, the lessons, unique things about your identity, crazy stories about Tally Labs, and just like the trends that you're seeing between all the companies that you've been at. I think there's an overall arc, and like using that as learning. I think you've been able to apply a lot of the decisions. You've been able to make consequential decisions from a lot of the things that you've seen. And obviously we're seeing that with Tally Labs, and James and I think we speak for the both of us. We both wish the best, for the future of Tally Labs. And maybe one day, not too soon, but one day when James and I have kids, maybe one day they're making stories on Tally Labs. That'd be a pretty cool future.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for the time. It's been awesome to talk to you both.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kate. We'll keep it going.
Yeah.
Stop the recording.
Okay.